Have you ever had that feeling in life, like you were waiting on something inevitable, something that is right around the corner, and when that thing came, you were screwed. It was over. There was nothing you could do about it. And then that thing came, just as you predicted, and it sucked. And then you were still alive.
The world is ending, Jimmy.
Do you feel like it really is ending?
What? Do I feel like it's really ending?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do, kind of.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, kind of, but I like to hear people tell me, no, it isn't.
Well, those people, they're getting harder to find, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
All those people that used to rely on just a chipper guy, the one friend, like, it's going to be all right. They're like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
So there's this book called Everything Must Go, The Stories We Tell About the End of the World by Dorian Lynskey, in which he examines the historical tendency to declare that the world is ending. In the introduction, he points out just how popular such a thing is to say right now. This is not the religious end of time, or eschaton, that has fascinated humanity for thousands of years, but the end of the world as a pervasive mood, a vibe. It's pretty clear that the world is ending, Mark Maron says in his comedy special End Times Fun. I don't want to shock anybody. Seems to be happening though. Everybody laughs. Nobody responds as if this were a preposterous claim, just as no reviewer of Sally Rooney's Beautiful World, Where Are You seemed taken aback by one character's insistence that there is no chance for the planet and no chance for us, and we are standing in the last lighted room before the darkness, bearing witness to something. Sheila Heti compares life in 2022 to being in a plane that was slowly twirling to the ground in her quietly apocalyptic novel Pure Color. Hey, what can you say, sings the comedian Bo Burnham in his satirical ballad That Funny Feeling. We were overdue, but it'll be over soon. You wait. An entirely routine way to express dissatisfaction with the world is to say that it is ending. Now, it's super valid to feel this way, to be honest. I think we have to at least make that disclaimer. If history occurs one time as tragedy and the second time as farce, the second rise of Trump in America feels like a farcical repetition of the rise of fascism in early 20th century Europe and Japan, an utter ripping apart of government programs headed by Elon Musk and the wanton billionaire class, a vow from the leader of the free world to put an end to communists, Marxists, and radical left thugs, and of course fascists, because why not repurpose a word being used to describe you, as well as a vigorous erasure of trans people, etc. And then of course there's the climate crisis, the thing rendering more and more of our planet uninhabitable, while the US government removes itself from even symbolic gestures at international cooperation towards slowing its effects. Say it with me, guys. We're fucked. Now that we got that out of our system. A lot of you here watching this video are not actually fucked. The systems around you are indeed collapsing, but you have resources and you have things you can do, not only right now, but probably for years on end. And I've tried to talk about this in previous videos, trying to help people see how they can organize against fascism or generally believe a better world is possible. But I don't know, it seems to me like it hasn't been very effective. It's not that I think my platform should single-handedly prevent doomerism on social media, but more that I think based on how my videos turned out that there was something missing. I was only ever trying to either give people hope or information on what they can do. But in between the hope that good things can come and are possible and the information on what you can do or what can be done, there has to be motivation, a sense that what you do actually matters and is worth exerting time and energy doing. And in order to have motivation, I think you have to have realism. A lot of you are correctly scared and angry about the state of the world and how messed up it is and oppression and all the other bad stuff, but you are highly unrealistic about what that will actually look like and what you can actually do in the short term. Let me explain. So I was first inspired to make this video after the Grammys, which a lot of people really liked, notably because people weren't mad about the awards that were given out, I guess, and also because people were really feeling what pop singer Chappell Roan, who was awarded Best New Artist, said in her speech, which was essentially shedding light on the exploitation of newer artists in this field and the lack of resources for them. And I remember seeing this tweet, somebody saying, "Oh, that was almost too good. It was like it was one last pup cup for us before we got put down." Which to me was like, I get why you would feel negative, but at a certain point, do we actually think that we're going to not ever see artists express political views that are against government in this country anymore? Do we actually think we're all going to be sent to be put down at the vet? I don't really understand why there's not a realistic understanding of how oppression worsens, how situations worsen. That isn't just, it's 1984, but worse. Anyway, a week later, the Super Bowl happened. Kendrick Lamar performed. People were pretty interested in the socio-political undertones of his performance, while not going out to say that it was some sort of revolutionary thing, which may have been part of the message of the performance. And one of the dancers at the end of the performance, Zulkarnain Nantambu, went out with a flag for Gaza and Sudan, expressing solidarity for people undergoing genocide and colonialism, which was very bold of him. And now, of course, they're trying to detain him and trying to figure out how they can put him away as long as possible, even though he did nothing wrong, nothing illegal. And I guess it's just funny to me that people think that these things are somehow not possible. When you watch the interviews with this person, he has a pretty clear conscience about what he did. He felt that there was no other way that he could do this performance and not speak out and not raise his voice, raise his platform to try to send a message to people of solidarity.
Alhamdulillah. Well, I felt I didn't have a choice because I was selected to be a part of the halftime show, and when I saw what my position was, it was a great stage, a large stage, and we know as a practicing Muslim, our Prophet Muhammad teaches us if you see a wrongdoing or you're aware of a wrongdoing, you must stop it with your hands. And if you can't stop it with your hands, stop it with your tongue. Speak out against it. And if you can't stop it with your tongue, try to stop it with your heart.
And that's just so not social media, right? In a way, it's very social media, but it's very not. Because on social media, there's always somebody criticizing you. There's always somebody saying, this isn't enough. Or somebody saying, this is nonsense, it's not worth it at all. Your political views are either not left enough or not right enough. And if you try to do something, well, it's not enough or it's too much. It's gotten to this point where social media, news media, and elected officials have convinced many of us that there's nothing we can do, that voting the right way was our only option before descending into fascism, and now we must simply look out for ourselves and strap in for the ride, which, we can go on and on about what that means about how democracy actually works and whether that's fair at all. But that's a separate video. It doesn't help constantly running into tweets that are viral and Instagram posts and videos, not only of bad news, but of bad takes, suggesting hundreds of thousands of people online or more have bigoted and destructive opinions. I like the internet, but it drives me up a wall sometimes, especially considering all the security threats that you now have to worry about. As an example, there are people called data brokers who will buy and sell your data online to anybody who wants it. And that's a no-no, right? A lot of your data has sensitive details about your whereabouts, about what you do, and just in general can have unsavory implications on what you buy or what you interact with. Especially for somebody like me who has to worry about the things that I say online being contradictory to what people think politically sometimes, or has to worry about having a public profile and somebody potentially wanting to, stalk me. It's really helpful for me to use services like Delete Me. I recommend today's sponsor Delete Me because Delete Me makes it quick, easy, and safe to remove personal info people are storing of you online. I really like how Delete Me sends you these updates after every couple of months showing you more websites that they've pulled your data from, personal information that they found and then removed, etc. You can get 20% off of a Delete Me plan using the code SANG after clicking the link in the description. That's easy. It's just code SANG. Simple words, Oh yeah, that's my last name. Yeah, that's probably why. That includes potentially a family plan. Remember that when your data is stored online, that also compromises the safety of family members of yours. So thanks to Delete Me for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. I get texts from friends of mine I can't believe we live in a world where everybody is so evil and everybody thinks like this, and maybe we're all just screwed. And it's like, man, you gotta log off. You gotta understand how many people out here, at the very least, are not even connected enough to understand why one would make these takes, let alone share those opinions or, not be susceptible to be changed in their opinions. I mean, people can change at the very least. So whatever amount of people it is that has these horrible takes, they can change, no? It just drains the hope out of you is what I'm trying to say. And that's the thing. Who owns these platforms? Who creates and deploys these algorithms? They certainly don't emerge from the will of the people. Social media is designed to make you self-sabotage. It is designed to make you feel helpless to the will of its powerful owners. It is still a useful tool, but it cannot be utilized in a positive way unless used with intention. And not only are we conditioned by our difficult realities to use it unintentionally as a seemingly necessary valve for distraction and connection, we are notably conditioned by the apps themselves, which we all know are designed to make us as addicted as possible. In this, we realize a few things. Social media is designed to make us feel overwhelmed and useless. We also know that people in power who own the apps want us to feel overwhelmed and useless, making it easier to manufacture consent from us to carry out their destructive policies that only exacerbate the difficult conditions we face because maybe they know better, because they're more powerful. And even if they don't, we'll never have power, so what's the point trying to contest it? We also should know that this works across party lines now, where you have one party that says you should all lay down and let us worsen the system to fill our pockets, and the other party has committed to saying, we are powerless to stop this, because they won. We can't stop authoritarianism because it was democratic. So they're going to erode democracy because democracy wanted it. I feel like these are basic things we should have worked out. The Democratic Party literally gets angry at grassroots organizations for pushing them to fight the illegal government takeover of Elon Musk and destruction of key federal programs. This has been reported on by Axios recently. And so none of our politicians are there for us. None of our politicians either want to use power for good or feel that they have any power to contest the power that doesn't want to do anything good, which is to say, I guess they're not powerful then, so then why do I care about voting for them? But then again, why, what is this? I think honestly, this is important to work out because so much of the onslaught of this kind of left-leaning social media negativity is an after effect of complete dependence on this system, on the Democratic Party, to fight fascism, to do good things for us, to make sure the system works for us. And they haven't done that. We see interactions online where people are like, hey, why is nobody protesting for Palestine anymore? Which is really funny considering what just happened at the Super Bowl. But also, they are outside of that. There are still Palestine rallies happening all the time. Another after effect of the social media hope drain is the passing off of decontextualized statistics as mere factual observations, like this ongoing narrative we have in the US and the UK that Gen Z is just super right-wing now, even though polls do not indicate what people seem to think they indicate. Not only do none of the things we've been taught help change the world, help make the world a better place, seem to actually work, quote unquote, but in fact, we are being forced to confront that the entire time the world has been pushed in the wrong direction, in part because we haven't done certain things that we probably should have. We didn't contest CEOs, and in fact, we praised them because we were made to think that they had the best ideas for innovation, and not that, of course, they steal ideas and steal resources and make a huge profit off of them while changing policies in countries to make their taxes more and more favorable, their income larger and larger, and exacerbate wealth inequality. And this kind of applies in so many different directions. Our sense of safety that we have figured out how to prevent epidemics with modern health science has eroded. And forget about the idea of going to college, starting a career, and buying a house. Those were life paths within an economy long gone. So, of course, it feels like the world is ending. In many ways, your world has ended, or it never even existed. You are still reckoning with the lies and the dated ideas and the unfair structures that have been taught and pushed on you by your family, your education systems, and by the media since you were a child. Of course, it feels like the bad guys will always win. We've been taught to listen to them the entire time, and what are they going to do? Tell us that they're losing? We don't see the value that can be brought to a community by creating local power generators and starting community gardens or starting free online databases. I mean, hell, I barely paid for textbooks through college because I had certain websites. This is why we need something other than hope and knowledge. We need realism, the kind of realism that only emerges when you study history, study material conditions, and actively participate in community. As long as you're continuing to put your energy away from working on things in your communities and towards social media, your hope will end up just being some nebulous hope that the communist revolution is right around the corner, or the Trump administration will just implode and the Democrats will quietly go back in and make everything normal again, or that the Trump administration has the right idea and that they're going to fix everything, or that China is just going to swoop in and once the United States falls apart in the next 3 years, they will rule the world in a fair and egalitarian way. It's just drained out of any of its essential life force. Your knowledge will end up just being stored in the back of your mind somewhere, only useful to tell people about and never to actually use. So let's get real here. Is the world actually ending? Yes and no. The world is always ending for certain people, as well as certain ideas and ways of being. When European settlers came to the Americas and committed atrocities against indigenous populations, that was the end of the world for their ways of life. But, as you can see, they did not just go away quietly as living beings, they continued to live, to exist, and resist. This is the subject of Stephen Charleston's book, We Survived the End of the World, wherein he describes different approaches to studying history and spirituality that emerged from indigenous Americans in response to colonization. The indigenous people of North America endured one of the greatest and cruelest onslaughts in human history. They went through the end of their world. Today we may be afraid that something like that may happen to us. We may watch the signs of the times and feel insecure, aware that when the great tides of change shift, they do not always shift for the better. Pandemics, environmental destruction, corrupt governments, war, and natural disasters. My ancestors have been through it all before. They have survived and they have returned to the land of the living. They bring a message of hope and transformation. They offer a vision of healing and restoration. They have something to tell us about how apocalypse works. Nobody ever thinks of apocalypse in this way. Even the popular left-leaning approach to climate catastrophe is one of an upcoming event that will end human extinction at some point. The movie Don't Look Up makes a heavy-handed metaphor that compares climate change to a comet set to destroy civilization. And honestly, that's a comforting metaphor for those of us who feel despondent. The end of the world is coming, and people are too stupid to care. Not me though, I'm smart, so I see it, but I can't do anything about it because everyone else is just too stupid. That feels really nice to say because then you don't have to do any actual work because it's hopeless, but you are also the smart person who would have done work had it not been hopeless. Cool. But as Ajay Singh Chaudhary points out in The Exhausted of the Earth, nothing, including climate change, ever really works that way. The film equates a genuinely universal phenomenon, a world-destroying asteroid strike, with the radically divided phenomenon of climate change. It equates an impending crisis with one that is already happening. It frames the debate as one which turns on belief. So let me break down what those 3 points mean. First, we love the idea of the genuinely universal phenomenon, that external destructive force that brings all of humanity together against it. It's the Independence Day narrative, if you remember that movie. That might be old. But that kind of force does not exist, at least not yet. Climate change is not that at all. Just like prior crises and disasters, some will benefit off of climate change to hoard more resources, and many will suffer death, destruction, and loss of ways of life. And this is the big problem with the entire concept of the end of the world. It's just for pretentious people, right? It's for people that want to push their glasses up and say, I told you all, but you're too stupid to see it, so now you'll have to suffer the consequences. The world does not end, though. It transforms. Climate crisis is not a big rock that will hit our planet and kill all of us at once. It is something that is already killing many people right now and will kill more people in the future. But those people, by and large, will be the ones categorized as okay to kill. Singh Chaudhary points out a 2012 report that climate change will kill 6 million people a year by 2030. And the same models note that the world currently experiences some 4.5 million climate deaths per year. That was in 2012. And as we cover in our video on the billionaire apocalypse, this is a reality wielded by those with power. Billionaires and their decisions to expand for-profit prison systems, deport migrants into poor areas sensitive to climate catastrophe, buy up all the housing and sell it at a premium, and of course, create expensive disaster insurance programs in case of fires in Los Angeles. These are a part of a system meant to further entrench the dominance of their classes above ours, and to exploit underclasses of their labor and devotion. Climate change is just the next phase of colonialism. It is another type of genocide. It is certainly not the end of the world for all of us. So if you're sitting around thinking, oh, these people will get their comeuppance someday, think again. But like what was done to Indigenous Americans, it will be the end of the world for some. And yet, Indigenous Americans survived the end of the world. Just as many do in Gaza and Sudan, and in the Congo, and Bosnia, and Vietnam, etc. The point is, the world does not suddenly come to a stop. We will never all be in this together. We will always, until the end of class struggle, be a huge multitude of different groups competing for resources. Those who survive know apocalypse not as an ending, but as a devastating transformation, much in the spirit of the original meaning of the word apocalypse. As Charleston writes, while many of us equate apocalypse with catastrophe or even with the end of the world, that is actually only half of the meaning. In Greek, the word derives from apokalyptein, which means to uncover or reveal. Originally, the word meant a vision of the future, a revelation about what was to come. In Europe, for example, from 1346 to 1353, a pandemic known as the Black Death moved slowly across the continent, killing millions of people. People in the path of the plague saw it as an apocalyptic revelation of God's anger at them. They understood it as a message, a warning from heaven. And once the plague arrived in their area, they saw its devastation firsthand and interpreted it as the end of their world. In this way, apocalypse became a term to describe both a vision of what is to come and a description of what is already happening. This brings us back to Linsky's book, where he gives us a bit of a history lesson in a way. There have always been doomers. In 1974, the year I was born, the French president Valéry Giscard d'Estaing declared, "The world is unhappy. It is unhappy because it does not know where it is going and because it senses that if it knew, it would discover that it was heading for disaster." One week in September 1965, the most popular song in America was Barry McGuire's warning that we were on the eve of destruction. In 1945, H.G. Wells wrote in his final book, "This world is at the end of its tether. The end of everything we call life is close at hand and cannot be evaded." In 1919, the Dutch historian Johan Huizinga wrote that it was bad form to praise the world and life openly. It was fashionable to see only its suffering and misery, to discover everywhere signs of decadence and of the near end. In short, to condemn the times or to despise them. He was ostensibly describing the late Middle Ages. In AD 250, Cyprian of Carthage asked, "Who cannot see that the world is already in its decline, and no longer has the strength and vigor of former times? There is no need to invoke scripture authority to prove it. The world tells its own tale, and in its general decadence, bears adequate witness that it is approaching its end." You get the picture. So there you go. This thing that you're feeling right now about this extremely unique moment in history, well, people have been feeling it through several other extremely unique moments in history. What did people do through those extremely unique moments in history that happened across the 20th century, 19th, 18th centuries, etc.? What did people do when their world was ending? That's what you need to be studying right now. I didn't want to just start off just reading off these historical examples and telling you that point, because I didn't want you to get the impression like I was just trying to dismiss what you're feeling. I didn't want you to get the sense that I was trying to dismiss the feeling that this world is over, that things are breaking down. Again, in many ways, the world is ending, but when it ends, it doesn't end. It transforms. I'm trying to get you to understand that these endings, this collapse, is happening for certain people, not for some universal us, but for the oppressed. And I'm trying to get you to understand that oppressed is an abstract category. It's something you can be in certain cases and not be in others. That there are many types of oppression that contradict and intersect. And that's, again, a complex thing for maybe a different video. I'm trying to get you to understand that this collapse is not some total final end of everything that you're just waiting on, but a transformation, which we have the capacity to observe, learn from, and act on. This is the problem with doomerism. Doom is easy and it's unrealistic. There's nothing to do about doom. Have you ever had that feeling in life, like you were waiting on something inevitable, something that is right around the corner, and when that thing came, you were screwed. It was over. There was nothing you could do about it. And then that thing came, just as you predicted, and it sucked. And then you were still alive. If you've ever had that feeling in life, I want you to understand that that's the reality of doom. Doom doesn't exist. It's just bad things that happen, that cause changes, transformations, and either we're going to accept that those transformations will happen and do our best to mitigate the damage as much as possible, or in fact, let them make us into better people, or we're gonna go like this, cover ourselves up, and wait in fear until the world ends. There's nothing to do about doom. It comes for us despite whatever we do, and there is nothing that comes after it. And yet, many of us are not going to die. And those of us who die will live on in the ones who survive. Again, if you've experienced death in your life, then you know that that's true. That's why there is no room for doom in a fight for a better world, in a fight against oppression. Doom takes up air and space that could be used on adaptation, survival, and creating actual change. Doomers tend to be well-to-do people who don't want to be oppressors, and so feel stuck in between oppressing and resisting, wishing to lay down and die rather than face it all. It feels like enlightenment, but it doesn't use any knowledge for good. And so I understand if you feel too much fear to do anything, if you feel so much fear that you just want to go online and post about it and repost about it, I understand. But if at any point you get tired of doing that or are looking for a way out, let me read you something. In the introduction of Everything Must Go, Linsky quotes Saul Bellow's book Herzog. We're doing quotes of quotes, book quotes of book quotes. We're such intellectuals here. Such convictions in the mouths of safe, comfortable people playing at crisis, alienation, apocalypse, and desperation make me sick, complains the protagonist of Saul Bellow's 1964 novel Herzog. We must get it out of our heads that this is a doomed time, that we are waiting for the end and the rest of it. Things are grim enough without these shivery games. We love apocalypses too much. Thanks for watching. This is my job. If you wanted to help me continue to make videos like this, please subscribe to my Patreon, where I upload bonus content like interviews with great content creators like FD Signifier, Foreign Man in a Foreign Land, Zoe B, Noah Samson, Tara Mooney, and Babilla, the editor of this video, Babilla. I hope you understand that I understand, but I want this video to do something to motivate you to get to wherever you need to get to. There's a lot of people out there that have suffered the end of the world. And if they still have hope, and if they're still working and adapting and observing and surviving, then we have no choice but to do the same. Take care. Thanks again to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. To get your data removed from the internet, check out Delete Me via my link in the description and get 20% off.